Disclaimer: doll customization is not meant for children. These are art pieces created by experienced artists using potentially harmful materials and processes, including spraying aerosols, using knives, saws, flammable chemicals such as acetone, skin and eye irritants such as clays and glues with toxic fumes, and specialty paints and glosses identified as potentially carcinogenic. Destroying and upcycling figures and dolls is dangerous and causes irreversible damage to personal property. Therefore, viewer discretion is advised and younger audiences should not view this content without adult supervision. We recommend the YouTube Kids app instead for kid-appropriate content. Hiya, and welcome back to Little Reverie. Since this is my first video of 2020, Happy New Year! Well, we doll artists have survived 2019, what with everything going on with YouTube and the FTC. Thankfully, things are more clear now, and doll art has been acknowledged as falling under the general audience category, exactly where it rightfully belongs. After all, with the chemicals and occasionally dangerous objects like sharp blades and sometimes power tools, doll art really should not be promoted towards children and labeled as child's content. I mean, really. Even a competent adult like myself can barely use these tools. I am still going to be keeping that disclaimer up though, just for good measure. Though it is a good warning nevertheless. I am so happy I can resume making content for you all. I also apologize for disappearing the last few months. I had been watching this issue very closely, and I decided not to upload November or December, as things were still kind of uncertain at the time. But either way, now that I am back, let's resume with the Tokyo Mew Mew series. Today, we'll be making the third member to join the team, Mew Lettuce, with, once again, Draculara as a base. So, yeah, let's get started. Like all the other Mew Mews, her DNA has been merged with that of an endangered animal. In her case, her DNA was merged with that of a finless porpoise, also known as the Indo-Pacific finless porpoise. They can be mostly found in the Korean peninsula, and their status is currently listed as vulnerable to extinction. Shall we start with hacking off this unruly hair of hers? Also, I think of all Dracularas, I really love how they do her makeup for the foreign exchange line. It's very simple, but so soft and effective. Let's destroy it. Alrighty, now that her factory paint has been removed, we need to get rid of the rest of her hair within her head. Take some boiling water, careful not to burn yourself, and pour it into a cup. Now just toss, set your doll in head first. Once the vinyl of your doll's head has become soft, remove her from the cup and yank the head off of the doll's neck peg. Remember to use something like a washcloth or a rag to shield your hands, because that water will be very hot. Now to remove the remaining hair from the inside of her head. Using some long needle nose pliers, scrape out the chunks of glue and hair. It's preferable to do this while the glue inside of the head is still soft from the hot water. Last call for any remaining chunks of glue. Since she's not going to be getting a reroot, I'm going to go ahead and pop her head back on. I am going to pop her lower arms off though, because 1, they get in the way, and 2, I like to move them as little as possible while customizing a doll, just to ensure that the joints don't loosen from any constant movement. Now then, I'm going to set her to the side for now and work on her outfit. Her outfit is basically the same structure as Mew Ichigo's, so I'm going to be using the same pattern. Only, rather than a skirt, she has more of a leotard going on under the top. So I basically just made a pattern using a Monster High bathing suit as a base. I altered it a bit by cutting off the upper part of the pattern. and then I trace it onto green cotton fabric.
And here are the final pieces for her main outfit.
I also make her armbands, choker, and garter using the same fabric, as well as adding a white trim. For the final touches to the three, I apply some fabric glue to the trim and cover them with white flocking. As for her shoes, I am modifying these Scara Screams boots, which I also used for Ichigo's boots. To get rid of the heel, I filled in the gap with hot glue. Epoxy is expensive and heavy after all. And then I go over it with epoxy sculpt just to smooth things out and get the shape that I need. While the epoxy is out, let's make her pendant and get started with the first pass of her lettuce stinettes.
Lettuce stinettes.
Okay, we'll roll with that. I dare all of you right now to say that 5 times fast. Once the epoxy has dried, using some acrylic paint, I paint the boots to match the rest of her outfit. Turning back to the lettuce stinettes, I apply a variety of its details in many passes. Once that's done, since I don't have any mold maker, make another.
Here they are, all painted and glazed. I also decided to add a piece of thread that I can slip right over her fingers. That way, she's able to hold them. Now that our outfit is all done, we can move right on to the face-up. I first draw in the shape of her eyes using a light brown pencil. Basically, this is just to map out how I want the eyes to look before I go in with more detail and color. Lettuce is going to have bright neon green hair, so I tried to match that with her eyebrows, which is very difficult on an already light surface. But I love how they turned out in the end. When adding detail to the lips, make sure you got an extra sharp pencil to reach in that narrow shape. As I blush her lips, I use a light reddish orange to give a more natural look. Now that the first layer is done, I'm going to go ahead and seal the doll using Mr. Super Clear. After that, the rest of the face-up is layering those colors and bringing out the highlights. I also sprayed her chest with MSC. That way I can draw her Mew mark. At some point, I just couldn't build up any more pigment in her eyes. So I decided to lift the pigment directly off of the pencil with a wet brush and just paint them on. See how much of a difference it can make? The one downside to painting on the pigment, it makes drawing on it difficult, as the sharp pencil tends to chip away at the layer underneath, even with a layer of MSC. So I'm going to just add shading to the eye and give it depth by using pastels. Before sealing her one last time, there's one more thing to add: the highlights in her eyes. It really brings those eyes of hers to life. After sealing her one final time, I use a high gloss varnish to give her lips a shine. Now we can finally move on to her hair. Mew Lettuce has vibrant neon green hair. Just in case her scalp were to show through in any areas, I'm going to paint her scalp the same color. Unfortunately, I didn't have any neon green viscose, so I ended up dyeing some alpaca hair instead. I love how it came out. Before I can actually start gluing her hair though, I needed to work out a couple of things. First, her antennae. I first measured the length of wire I needed and decided the placement on her head. I then glued 2 pieces of white fabric around the wire. After I had fray checked the fabric, I cleaned up the edges and then I painted them using white fabric paint, just to make them look a little more saturated, since the fabric I had was a little muted. In official art, the length of her antennae can differ. In some cases, it's portrayed long, while in others it can be portrayed as short. I decided to go for the latter, since it would be easier to manage. Plus, I think that the shorter one is just more aesthetically pleasing. Now then, to make her long, tied-up ponytail. Using some wire, I measured the length I would need, and I marked the placement on her head with a Sharpie. To save on hair, I only added the hair that comes out at the end. Could use a trim too. I wrapped the rest of the wire with white fabric, before inserting the exposed wire back into her head and gluing it in place with epoxy glue. Epoxy glue is very strong, and it's less likely to loosen when posing the ponytail. I also glued the antennae while I was at it. With the wire inside, they're also posable. Finally, I can move on to actually adding her hair. And here she is with a full head of hair. Definitely needs a trim though. After trimming and styling her hair, it's time to dress her up. She's finally complete! I absolutely love how Mew Lettuce turned out. I think she's got to be my favorite so far. I hope you all like her as well. It's starting to look more like a team now. Mew Pudding is next. And with that, from Little Reverie to you, may you all have a wonderful day. Bye-bye!